Hello, welcome to my channel, Midnight Oil Software. I'm Greg, and on this channel I talk about video game development using Unity and also drawing digital art, usually for said video games. In this stream today, we're going to continue working on the Moon Patrol remake that I'm developing as part of a minigame that I'm adding to my Ninja Eggs game. In the previous stream, I drew a pterodactyl, and the plan today is to get that flying around and dropping bombs. But before I do that, I want to show you some issues that I discovered as I was testing what I'd already developed. I noticed a couple of issues. They're minor issues, and I think they'll be pretty easy to fix. But I want to go ahead and demonstrate those. The first issue is involving the explosions that I render when I destroy the hazards, like the boulder or the hill or the turret. As you may recall, when a player shoots one of those, we blow them up. I display an explosion. And pay attention to that explosion. I want you to notice that even though the terrain is scrolling by and those hazards are scrolling by, when I blow them up, or when there's a second issue that I want to point out. I don't know if you noticed, but when the tire went flying after my vehicle was destroyed, the tire hit the turret and destroyed it. And that shouldn't happen. So the two issues. One is the explosions, and I'm going to demonstrate that again. And I don't know if you noticed, but even though the terrain's scrolling by, the explosions are not scrolling. So it actually looks like they're moving away from the buggy, which looks very unnatural and odd. Yeah, so you see everything else is scrolling towards the player, but the explosions aren't. So I want to fix that, and I also want to fix the issue where the flying debris destroys the hazards, which really shouldn't happen. And if you haven't already, and if you appreciate the content on this channel, I'd appreciate it if you would click that like and subscribe button and click that notification icon so that you get notified the next time I go live or post a video. So let's look at the first issue. The first issue is around the explosion. Now the boulder and the hill and the turret prefabs have a destructible script attached, and I have a prefab for this fire explosion. And that's great. The explosion looks great, but I want it to scroll. Now I already have a script to do this because in the Flappy Egg game, when the player picks up a reward, I throw up a particle effect like some stars or something, and they scroll along with the background. And I want to reuse that script, and I want to reuse it on this fire explosion, but I want to create a new effect. So I have this fire explosion prefab, and I'm going to duplicate that. I think I'm going to have to copy and paste it. Well, let me just drag it into the scene. I'm going to unpack the prefab. I'm going to rename this Scrolling Explosion. And I want to attach a script to it. So I can get away with this because this particle system that I'm using is set to render in local space. So that means if I parent it to something that's moving, it should scroll along with it should move along with the parent, as opposed to spawning it in world space where it would be independent of any other game object. So let me go find that script. I think it's called Scrolling Effect. And indeed, there it is. So I can give it, I think I want to give it itself as a particle system. And then I want to give it a X scrolling speed of -5 in this case, because that's what I'm scrolling the terrain at. And let's open up the script and look at it. So I cache the transform. And in the update method, as long as the particle effect, the particle system that's attached is alive, which means, as it says here, if it's contains live particles or still creating new particles, it will return true. So as long as that's true, I want to scroll it. Otherwise, I actually want to despawn this game object. So there's my scroll effect. I take the transform's position, and then I adjust the X and the Y position by their scroll X and scroll Y, adjusted by delta time, and assign that back to the transform position. So in this case, I'm only setting the X scroll to -5. Now I just want to look at this. This may cause me a conflict. I don't think I want that component on there because I'm going to deactivate. The scrolling effect is going to deactivate this. So let me go back and look at that again. This is doing the same thing. It's checking to see if the particle system is alive. And then I'm setting this game object. I'm deactivating. I don't want to do this. So I'm going to remove that script, that component. And I'm going to create a new prefab. Scrolling explosion. Okay, and so now go back into our mini games, our egg patrol, boulder, hill, and turret. I'm going to lock that in the inspector. And instead of using fire explosion, I'm going to use scrolling explosion. And that, I believe, should work. Let's give that a shot. Oh, I just realized I left one of those in the scene. Interesting start effect. Yes, so the explosion is scrolling along with the background now. That looks a million times better. Now regarding the other issue, there, the tire flew forward and destroyed the turret, which is not what I want. So that should be pretty simple to fix. The tire prefab, I believe, is defined here as Buggy debris. And it's currently on the player layer. And the destructible script, if I go back to one of these guys and look at the destructible script, I've got this collection of layers that should destroy this game object. So a player or a player bullet should destroy it when colliding with it. So the simple solution for this is to move this to a different layer. I'm actually going to create a new layer. I'm going to call this debris. I mean, why not? Going to go back to Buggy debris and assign that to that. Now I do want it to collide with hazards. I just don't want them to destroy hazards. So as long as in the physics settings, as long as debris collides, it should collide with terrain and hazard. That's already set. That's good. It should collide with them. But then if we go into the destructible, since debris is not one of these layers that will destroy it, it should just bounce off it and not destroy it. So let's see if I can test that. It's a difficult scenario to reproduce sometimes. The easiest way is to usually let a turret shoot me and hope the tires fly forward. Another way is to die in a crater and let the tires bounce out and hope they bounce and hit a hazard. Oh, that would have been a perfect opportunity. That would too. Give me a turret. Oh, there was perfect. The tire flew over there, bounced up along the hazard, but did not destroy it. So both issues were fixed and relatively quickly. Okay, so to the pterodactyl. In the previous stream, I drew a pterodactyl, and I went ahead and in between streams drew this bomb. So I put it on a separate layer so I can display it as part of the pterodactyl. So the pterodactyl's kind of carrying it around in its claws. And when it drops the bomb, I'll hide it from there, and I'll just spawn a new bomb prefab that will fall. So I've already imported this into the art folder, pterodactyl, and I've already set my sprite setting so that it would scale appropriately. And if I drag a pterodactyl into the scene, excuse me, you can see that it's a little bit smaller than the Buggy. And what I really want to have happen is I want it to fly in from the side, and I want it to fly in between maybe here vertically and here vertically. Basically, I want it to be high enough so that when the Buggy jumps, it won't collide with it. And I want it to also do some loop-de-loops. So in the classic Moon Patrol, the ships come in and then they like loop around and stuff. And then I think they fly off the screen at some point if you don't destroy them. So I want them to come flying in, do some loops, drop a bomb, and then fly off. So let's first of all work on a prefab for this guy. I know I'm going to want a collider. So that looks pretty good. And I know I'm going to want to child a bomb. So let me just drag a bomb onto it. Well, there we go. And I'll reset its transform. And I want it to display behind the pterodactyl. And let me just position it so it kind of looks like it's being held by his claws. I kind of like that. Cool. So we've got two sprites, a pterodactyl and a bomb, and I'm going to want to add a script to it. Let's see, scripts. Egg patrol. Create C# script. I think that's right. Open that up in Visual Studio. Set the namespace. Okay. And the very first thing I know I'm going to want is a reference to that bomb sprite. So that whenever he I always do this when I have a namespace. There we go. I want to be able to turn it on and off, so that's all this is. So at some point, I'm going to have a drop bomb method. What am I doing? Void drop bomb. And right now, all I'm going to do is turn that off. Okay, so there's that. That will allow me to turn it on and off. So we're going to, on enable, want to spawn it at a particular position. And I know I'm going to want to mess with the transform. So in on awake, I'll cache the transform. And so I'm going to want to spawn it at a particular X position, but also in a range of Y position. So let's go into Unity. That's probably a good X location for it. So maybe I'll just say negative, what does negative 8 look like? Negative 9. So I'll spawn it at negative 9. So this square here is my camera view. And so if I grab that guy and move him in, he comes into view at about negative 6. So maybe negative 8.5 would be good. So let's go back to our sprite. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a serialized field for his X start position. And I'll make that a float. And I'll default it to negative 9. And by making it a serialized field, I can always change it in the inspector if I don't like that location. Okay, so just trying to make sure my volume looks good here. I'm going to crank this up just a little bit. I noticed that YouTube, even though the volume seems fine here in OBS, the video that YouTube puts up, the volume seems really low compared to other videos that I watch. So if anybody notices that, I'd like to see your comments about it, because that's a little bit annoying. And YouTube does not provide a way anymore, they used to adjust the volume of a video after it's been uploaded. Let's give it a couple of fields for where I want to spawn vertically. And you know what? Since I'm going to be doing loop-de-loops, I think I want to give it an X max. And I'll default this to 0 for now. 0 is the dead center of the screen, and I'll explain what I mean. When this pterodactyl spawns in and flies in, he can fly in between, I'm going to say somewhere around here and here, or maybe here. This is 0. That's the middle. So have him fly in between here, and then do a loop, either in this direction or this direction. Well, actually, I'm going to divide his start and his min and max heights, and depending on whether he's above or below that, he's either going to spawn this way, or, let's see, he's either going to spawn this way, so down, then up, or up, then down. And then, depending on whether he's left or right of the buggy, he's either going to spawn right, then left, or left, then right. Not spawn, but loop. So I hope that makes sense. I basically just wanted to do a loop, but the direction of the loop, vertically and horizontally, will depend on where he is in relation to its height and the buggy horizontally. So I hope that makes sense. Let me go back to my script. Did I not assign that script to the pterodactyl? I did not. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and create a prefab while I'm in here. There we go. Go ahead and assign that. Why are you not? That is a game object, is it not? This should be a game object. Oh, I have no idea what was up with that. Okay, so my x max is going to be 0. My y min I'll say 2. And my y max, I just don't want them to go out of view. So 4.5. Okay, I kind of like that. All right. So let's go back to our pterodactyl script. So some other things I know I'm going to want to need. I'm going to want a Boolean to know if I'm dead, because I will be able to kill these. And I want to initialize that to false when I enable. What else do I want to do in enable? I want to set its spawn point. So how are we going to do this? I want to save off its position. Now I know that instantiating a vector3 can maybe incur garbage, but I'm just going to say vector3 pos equals transform dot position. And I want to set its x to be my start x. And then the y is going to be a random. And I want to go from the y min to the y max. Interesting. There we go. Put an underscore there. All right, so I'm spawning it at x and y. I want to assign that back to the transform. So let's just duplicate a few of these. I'm going to move them off the screen for now. And I'll go ahead and override that prefab change while I'm here. Hit play, and I should spawn them in 3 different locations. And I see nothing. What happened? Nothing in the console. Very interesting. So let's go into the script. On enable, set spawn point. I get my transform position, which I've cached here. I set my start, my x and my y to be my start x and then a range from min to max on the y-axis. And I assign that back to my transform position. Let's debug it, see what's going on. -9. Oh, well, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. I'm spawning it off the screen, which is what I told it to do. And for some reason, I forgot that that was off screen, and I was expecting it to show up on the screen. But let's look at their Y positions, and they should be 3 different Y positions between 2.5. So there's 3.3, 3.7, 2.5. So it spawned them at 3 different heights. And it spawned them all at the same X position, which is fine. Cool. So what I want them to do now is fly in to a point between I actually want to add an X min, I think, as well as an X max. Or an X, let's see. What do I got here? I've got X start and X max. I want an X min, yeah. So I want it to fly into a point somewhere between roughly here. So that's -5. Looks good. Maybe a little bit farther back. Well, I don't know. Say -5. And I think I gave 0 as a max. Because I wanted to be able to drop bombs in front of the buggy too. I don't really want it to drop bombs very far behind the buggy, or at least not very often. So maybe -5 to 0 would be good max values. But if it drops a bomb in front of the buggy, I want it to blow a crater in the terrain here. If there isn't already a crater, that would add some additional challenge, I think. So up here where I've got my X max, which I'm never using currently. All right. So we want to, after we spawn and set our spawn point, I want to build a path that it's going to follow. So, as I mentioned, I want it to fly in to a particular point. So it's already on a vertical axis. I want it to fly in horizontally to a point between here and here. And then when it gets there, I want it to do a series of loops. And maybe yo-yo loops. So they'll go back and forth. At some point, they're going to drop a bomb. It could be anywhere during these loops. And then it's going to fly off. So there's a really cool component, a free component in the asset store that I'm going to use to do this. And I've only used this a few times in games, but I think it's really, really, really cool. Let me go to my browser here. This asset is called DOTween. So tweening basically will animate something between multiple points, and it will do it smoothly over a period of time. And so it's a technique that's used a lot in games when you want to move something from one position to another, and you want it to be smooth. And in this particular case, since I know I'm moving to a particular location, and I'm going to want to do a series of movements, basically executing a loop, there's a couple of functions on this that I think are perfect for this. So first, obviously, is do move. Or I could just do move X. But I'm probably just going to use do move, and I'll use a vector 3. So I'm going to build a... For the loops, I'm going to build a path, and I'm going to use this DoPath function. So you give it a series of waypoints. a duration for how long you want it to take to go over that entire series of waypoints. And then you can give it a path type. You can either do it linear, or I'm probably going to use this catmom path. Catmol-rom. I think that's how you pronounce it. This is essentially going to give us a curve. So I'm going to give it 4 points. I'm going to move to a particular position, and then I'm going to build a path. And then depending on whether we're looping this way, or this way, or this way, or this way, I'm going to give a series of points. So for instance, if I'm looping this way, I'm going to give it that point, that point, that point, and then this point again. And I'll have it execute that path, and then I think there was another parameter. Well, you can also set a loop, and I'll show you that. There's a set loop. Yeah, set loops. So I can set how many times I want it to loop, and if I give it a -1, it'll loop indefinitely. But if I say I want it to loop, I'll probably give it a random range again, like maybe from 4 to 8 or 5 to 10 or something for how many loops it does. And then you can give it different loop types. You can do, I think, like repeat or restart, or yo-yo will reverse it. So I think I'm going to give it some random number of loops and then a loop type of yo-yo. So anyway, that's the plan. We'll see how that goes. So I want to create a method here called build loop path, and then execute loop path. So 2 methods. Go ahead and stop debugging. And am I still running? No, okay. All right, I'm going to move these down. All right, so build loop path. So first of all, I need to have a variable for the path. And I'll use a list of vector 3s. And I'm going to call it path. And I'm going to go ahead and instantiate that in awake. And then here I'm going to clear that path first thing. I'm trying to type and think about something else at the same time. I think in addition to the path, I'm going to want to have a first, for lack of a better word, first stop. Excuse me. So I'm going to want him to fly to that first stop first. So let's define that to be a new, and I can go ahead and make this a vector 2 since I don't care about the z position, and it will just default to a 0 on the z-axis because I don't care what it is on the z-axis. And I want to go from xmin to xmax. So it's going to fly to a position between xmin and xmax. Oh. Gotta move this outside my random statement. No. So this should set a location for it to fly to initially. So let me go ahead and execute loop path. I think another thing you can do with Tween is you can create a sequence. Oh, let's look over here. Create sequence. So you can create a sequence and you can append different operations to it. So I'm going to create a sequence, and I'm going to have the very first thing in the sequence be a move to, and move to that first position on the path. So let's see. Path sequence. DOTween. I think it's all caps. Yes, DOTween.Sequence returns a new DOTween sequence to be used for tween groups. Cool. And I want to append to that. And so the way the DOTween stuff works is they're just extension methods that apply to different components in Unity. So I've got my transform here, and there's an extension method called doMove. And so I want it to move to first stop, and I'm just going to give it a duration of a second. I want it to fly into that first stop position, and I want it to take 1 second to do it. So let's go back to Unity. Give this a test. Pow! So, all three of them spawned at different locations and then flew into their start position. They are clustered pretty close together, but we'll see how it looks when they start animating them. But that worked just about how I was hoping. So next on the build path, I want to create fly loops. So I'm going to add another method, create fly loops. I like things to be very descriptive in my code. Okay, so what do I want to do in here? So I want the loop to go in a specific direction. But before that, let's just do something really simple. I want to have a distance for it to loop along the x-axis. So it'll be between 1 and 2. Maybe I'll add variables for that too. I don't know. Serialized field. default it to 1. I'll default it to 2 to start. But we'll make it a serialized field so I can change it in the inspector if I don't like it. So what do I want to do here? I want to say x distance equals random.range x min distance x max distance. Cool. And now we want to build points to put in our path. And again, these can be vector 2s, and it will convert them to vector 3s automatically with a 0 on the axis. So call this point new vector 2. So we want to go from the first stop dot x plus the x distance and then we want to, I think I want to clamp this because I don't want it to go off the top of the screen, and I don't want it to go so low that it might hit the buggy. So I'm going to clamp this. I'm going to take first stop dot y plus 1. So I'm going to assume I'm looping up first. And this will be adjusted by a factor depending on our location on the map. But first, I just want to get the basic loop algorithm working. So I'm going to add 1, and then I'm going to clamp it between y min and y max. Oops. So I don't want it to be any greater than y max. I think that should work. Add that to our path. So let's see, now I want to create one. I'm going to take that x position and I'm going to subtract the x distance. So the first loop, we're adding 1 to x and we're adding 1 to y. So we're moving here. Now we want to move here. So we're going to subtract 1 from x and add another 1 to y. So let's go back. We're going to subtract 1. Actually, subtract x distance, since I'm calculating that. And then again, we're going to want to clamp. So I think I want to take point y minus 1, y min, y max. I think that will work. Add that to our path. So now we're going to go subtract 1 from x again, because going back to Unity, we're going to go from here to here. So we're going to subtract from x and we're going to add to y. Then we're going to add to x and add to y for the fourth and final point. So pt.x minus x distance, f.clamp pt.y plus 1. Is that right? Yeah. Is that right? Yes. Fourth and final point, we're going to add back the x distance. Let me think about this, go back and look at this again. So we started here, so we add to x, add to y, subtract from x, add to y, subtract from x, subtract from y, subtract from x, subtract from y. Okay. That creates our path. Okay, so now in our execute path, we've already flown to our first stop in the sequence. So I want to append, oops, a transform.DoPath. I want to take our path and convert it to an array. And let's say I want it to take 2 seconds to do the entire loop. We might make that a variable. The path type is going to be that catmul rom. The path mode is going to be side scroller 2D. And then I want to give it a resolution. So the resolution of the path, higher resolutions make for a more detailed curve, but are more expensive. Defaults to 10, but a value of 5 is usually enough if you don't have dramatic long curves between waypoints. So let's try 5. I think that would work. Now I want to add loops. So I'm just going to append add a set loops here. Unity engine.random.range. And let's go from 5 to 10 loops. And then the loop type will be yo-yo. And then I don't want them all to fly in formation. So I'm going to give them each a delay, a random delay. Oops. And let's loop from half a second, or delay from half a second to 1.5 seconds. I like that. And then, just to test the rest of what I want to do, let's append a new sequence. We'll do a move, new vector 3. We'll take our, where we started, which is off the screen, and multiply it by -1. This will flip it and put it off the screen to the right. And then on our current Y position, current Z position. And say I want that whole thing to take 2 seconds. And then when that completes, is that what I want to do? want to despawn our game object. And I want it to kill the tween when it's complete. And then I want it to play. So, if I've done this correctly, it will first move to its first stop position. Then it's going to do this path that I created using those points over 2 seconds with the Catmull path type in side scroller 2D mode, and then with a resolution of 5. So that's how it's going to calculate the curve of points between the different waypoints. I'm going to loop between 5 and 10 times in yo-yo mode, and I'm going to each one of these guys is going to have a delay of 0.5 to 1.5 seconds, so they don't all fly in the same formation. In other words, they don't all loop at exactly the same time. And after it finishes that, it should move to a position off the screen to the right on its current Y position. And when that completes, I should despawn our game object. Now, hopefully that all is coded correctly. Let's go back into Unity. Interesting. It looked like they only looped once. And of course, I wasn't even paying attention to the buggy, and I ran into a hazard, which is kind of interesting. But that should all be correct. Let me go back, look at my code again. I'm also going to want to look at the paths that I'm creating and make sure that they are correct. So maybe I'll put a breakpoint in here. Okay. So this is going to be just to the right of the buggy, pretty high up on the screen. It's going to go to the left 2 units, down a unit. Down to negative 3 points. So farther left, up a unit. Then to the right and down a unit. I'm trying to think in my mind if that's correct. So I'm going to go, so what's my start position? That's important. -2. So I'm going to go right. So I'm going to start at -2, 3. So I'm going to go right and up. So I'm going to go like that. But then it looks like I'm going to go left and down, which seems wrong. No, wait a minute. I started here. I'm going to go here. Then I'm going to go back here. No, I'm going to go here. This takes me back to my start position, which can't be right. So I got something wrong in my algorithm here. Because I'm going to start here. I'm going to go here. Then I'm going right back here. Then I'm going here. And then I'm going back to here again. So I'm going bink, 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 bink. And what I want to do, I think I want to go there, there. So I want to add. I want to add to X here. So let me go back into Unity and just get my mind wrapped around this. So let's say I start here. I want to go plus x plus y, plus x minus y, minus x minus y, minus x plus y. So let me go adjust my code. And it still did not seem to loop. I mean, in terms of only did it one time. So let's simplify things just a little bit. So I'm going to do a DoPath. Set loops. I think that might have been the problem. At least that particular problem. Might help if I pay attention to the buggy. Actually, let's simplify things here. Go into our terrain manager and say I don't want any craters and I don't want any hazards. Yeah, that's not quite right. It looks interesting, but it's not really the effect that I want. So these guys finished, and now he's finished. So if I go back into that code and add this, and let's just shorten the loop type. We'll go from 3 to 6 just for now. And I might make that a variable. Ooh. So they flew in, they juked around, and they flew off. They're all flying in pretty much in front of the buggy, though. I think. Okay, that's So it definitely has that variability. It does look like it's possible to collide with them, so I might have to adjust that y-min. But let's look at that algorithm some more for the looping. I've got to be doing something a little bit wrong there. And maybe while I'm at it, I'll go ahead and do the thing that I wanted to do to control the direction that they loop. So I know I'm going to want to know if I'm high in the sky and if I'm to the left or the right of the buggy. So let me add a property here. And I will determine that I'm high in the sky if my start Y position is greater than, got to do some math here. I want to say Y max minus Y min times 0.5. So at the halfway point between these 2 points, if I'm greater than that, I'm higher. I'm considering myself high in the sky, and that will determine whether I loop up first or down first. And so what I mean by that is if I'm high in the sky, I don't want to loop this way. I want to loop this way. This gives me more room to loop, whereas if I'm up here, you know, it's going to be a very tight loop because I'm clamping it. So I have more room to loop if I go this way. And if I'm down here, I don't want to loop down here. I want to loop that way. And then I'll do the same thing for X and Y, but I want to get it working for Y first. So when I'm creating my loops, we'll have a Y factor which is going to be, if I'm high in the sky, -1, otherwise 1. And so I just multiply this by Y factor. That should ensure that I loop the right direction. So now let me just look at the rest of this. I might as well do the X at the same time. So I'm going to go plus, minus, minus, plus, and plus, plus, minus, minus. Let me see what that looks like. Oh yeah, and they're yo-yoing, flying off. I am extremely pleased with that. Let's try that again. Of course, I need to be able to shoot them next. That's the next thing on the agenda. All right, and of course, I'm not going to just start with these. I'm going to spawn them during the game, but that'll probably come in the next stream when we add the spawning. So what do we want to do today? We want to be able to destroy these guys. So how do we want to do that? Well, we've already got a collider on them, so that's good. And they've got their pterodactyl script. And I've got a variable to tell me if I'm dead or not. So let's add some more variables here. I'm going to add a prefab for an explosion. And I'm going to add a prefab. Actually, I want to give it a few different audio clips for dying sounds. And I've already picked out some stuff for this. I think I can go ahead and keep using that fire explosion. I kind of like that one. But for the sounds, I went up to freesound.org. It's a great site, by the way, if you're looking for free sounds to pull into your game. Actually, I might have got these from one of my asset packages. But I've got these goblin dying sounds. So I don't know if you can hear that. Turn up my desktop audio. I think I kind of like them. So let's see, what do I want to do when I die? Let's taken out of context, that could be an interesting statement. Okay, so we're going to want to handle our on collision. I know that. And I like to put the callbacks up above my own private method. So I'll say on collision enter 2D. And the very first thing I want to do is say if should die and should die is going to be very simple for now, at least. I'm just going to return the value of dead. I mean, another way to do this would be to make this a public property with a private setter and then get rid of this. But it's neither here nor there. Well, I'll do it that way just so you can see what it looks like. Well, no, that's not going to work, because yeah, should die it might have some other conditions besides just whether or not I'm dead. All right, so should die. And I'm going to move that down below these guys. What do I want to do? Well, I know I'm going to want to kill the tween. If the tween is still animating, I want to kill that. And in order to kill that, if we go look at my documentation again, there's a kill method. And the kill method needs to take an ID of what to kill. And so what I need to do is assign an ID to this tween. So I'm probably going to want to do that in my build path method, where I'm building my sequence. Or actually in the execute path method. Is that right? Yeah, this is where I'm building my sequence. So over here where I'm setting auto kill, I think I want to set an ID. And I think I can just use get instance ID, which should just be a unique integer, which is the ID of this game object. That should work. So then in die, I can use a static method on DOTween, kill, get instance ID, and I don't want it to complete the tween. I just want it to kill the tween. So that should stop its looping animation. I'm going to want to spawn the explosion prefab. And I'll go ahead and spawn it at my position with quaternion identity, because rotation doesn't really matter for an explosion. And I want it to go ahead and activate immediately. Okay. And tell the audio manager to play a dying sound. Actually, I want it to play a monster sound. And that just determines what channel it's going to play the audio clip on. And I think monster sound's an appropriate place. And I'll add a dying sound property that I'll implement in a minute. Gonna just get a random number from 0 Yep, that should work. Should give me one of those 2 dying sounds. So I'll spawn an explosion, and then finally, I want to despawn this game object. And in the future, I'll add some scoring and stuff. Let me go back and look at this guy and make sure he's on the enemy layer. He was not. Actually, I don't want the bomb to be on the enemy layer. Okay, I think that should do it. Oops. That looked like that should have hit him. So they don't seem to be dying. Oh, I bet you I know it's wrong. Well, no, I gave it a dying prefab and dying sounds. It is on the enemy layer. Player bullet should collide with enemy. Oh, what about Buggy bullet? Is Buggy bullet a player bullet? Yes, Buggy bullet is on the player bullet layer, so that should collide with enemy. Let's put a breakpoint in our on collision. I wonder if... Well, the other thing I want to do when I die is... I don't want to die more than once. So on collision enter 2D. If should die, which is... Ta-da! I think that was the whole problem. I might never be able to hit him. He was too far in front of the buggy. That's a problem. Oh, but one thing I'm going to do in the future, Classic Moon Patrol allows you to move the buggy forward and backwards. And so that's going to be an interesting stream, because what I want to do, because I'm scrolling the terrain to give the illusion that the buggy is moving, I want to have a point when, if I move backwards, well, let's say I move forwards, I want it to move to a certain point, and then I want it to start speeding up the scrolling speed when I get to that point. So initially when I scroll forward, the buggy will move to a maximum forward position. And let me switch to this monitor here. So yeah, so initially when I scroll forward, the buggy will move to a maximum forward position. And then I'm going to start increasing the speed that I'm scrolling up to a maximum scroll speed. And then when I release the forward button, I will initially drift back to my neutral position and then slow down the scroll speed again to the normal scroll speed. And then the opposite, when moving backwards, I'll move back to a minimum position and then slow down the scroll speed. And when I release the back button, I'll move to my neutral position and then resume the normal scroll speed. So that's how I plan to implement the forward and back ability. So that will allow me to get to these guys if they're in front of me or behind me, and it will also allow me to evade the bombs that they're dropping. Otherwise, there'd be no way to avoid bombs that are dropping straight down on me and outside of the line of fire of my excuse me, of my gun here. So yeah, I think that should work pretty good. So we've got the pterodactyls flying in. We've got them doing their loops and then flying off, and I have the ability to kill them. I want to debug and make sure that I'm really stopping the tween, killing the tween. And so the way I'll do that is I won't despawn the game object when I kill them. I just want to see if they stop looping. Stop flying in their loop. I think I just accidentally clicked my iTunes icon. I did. I opened up iTunes in another window. Didn't mean to do that. Okay. Gonna click play here. Perfect. You see they stopped looping when they got hit. So I'm killing the tween. And so now I'll put that code back to despawn them. All right, so far, everything that I wanted to implement today has been implemented. I could go ahead and add the dropping of the bombs. Maybe I will just start work on creating the bomb prefab at least. And we'll go ahead and delete a couple of these guys. And go to my prefabs. Actually, go to my art. Egg Patrol. I'm going to drag in a bomb. Just a bomb by itself. And we'll put that also on an enemy layer. And we're going to want to add a polygon collider. Actually, you know what? Let's keep it simple. Capsule collider. Move this over where I can see it. That's all we need. We don't need no big complicated polygon collider for that. All right. Nice. He's going to need to have a rigid body because he's going to fall by gravity. So I don't want him to have any drag. So he's going to definitely respond to gravity, and he's going to fall. So if I was to drag him up in the scene, hit play, he should fall. And he didn't hit anything. That's because enemy does not collide with terrain. So let's go up to our project settings. Look at enemy. Well, let's look at terrain and have him collide with enemy. And I also want hazard. I think hazard should collide with enemy too. I might have to add a separate layer for this guy because he's not a bullet. He's technically not an enemy, but he should fall and hit the ground. Nice. Okay, let's drag him over the car. Okay. Let me go into my Buggy. So I think I'm to the point where I'm going to want to put these in a collection. Yep, I think it's time to do that. String. You know what? I could get really fancy. This will work. Oh. This will work, but what I could do is I could cache the actual layers. So I've got the layer names up here, and in my awake I could cache a collection of integers and then just compare the actual layer, and avoid this call. So I'll go ahead and do that. So let me go back into Unity. Look at my buggy. Destroyed by layer names. So there was enemy. Oh. Got to give it a size first. Okay, so enemy bullet hazard. But the bomb needs to have a script on it to destroy itself. But that works. Let me turn the... well, let's not do that yet. So we know that this works. Create a script here. Bomb. Please tell me I created a prefab from that bomb. I did not. Thank you, undo. I don't think I care what I collide with. Set my namespace. Okay. Object pooler. Despawn game object. Game object. Now, I do want to do something else on the bomb. The bomb needs to have a sound effect when it's dropping. So I'm going to come in here and add an audio source. And I'm going to set it to level sounds. And then for my audio clip, I dragged in a sound, falling bomb. So let me play that. So I think that'll be a cool sound effect when it starts falling. Cool. All right, so override prefab. Delete that from there. So now all I need to do is have the pterodactyl drop the bomb. And I'm just going to have a bomb drop delay. Min. And I can always play with these in the inspector if I don't like these values. On enable. All right, we currently are not doing anything in update. You know, typical of anything in a minigame, I want to move these private variables down below my little properties. And I'm going to add one for mini game level controller. And in awake, where'd my bomb drop delay go? So let's extract this to should drop bomb, just to be descriptive. All right, so if we're playing, and the bomb is active, meaning we have a bomb loaded, and our delay has reached 0, return true, in which case we will drop a bomb. What do we want to do when we drop a bomb? Right now we're just setting our bomb sprite to inactive. Oh, what we need now, and you all probably were screaming this at the computer, is a bomb prefab. Don't already have one, all right? Okay. So what we want to do is tell our object pooler to spawn a game object, bomb prefab. we want to spawn it at the bomb sprite's transform position. And I think we can use quaternion identity. True. Go back into Unity. Go to our bomb prefab. Or actually go to our pterodactyl prefab. And drag in a bomb. Why no dropping a bomb? Well, for one thing, we never set our, well, we did. Bomb drop delay is set to range min max. So there's probably something wrong in our should drop bomb logic. So that's the obvious thing to debug. We shouldn't be dead yet, so that shouldn't happen. All right, so we are playing. The bomb is active. Oh, you see it? You see the problem? We're never decrementing our counter. Actually, I want to equal time to delta time. And actually, I don't need to do anything else. It doesn't matter. If I've already dropped the bomb, it doesn't matter if I keep decrementing the counter. Let me duplicate a few of these. So the next thing I'm going to want to do, man, I got a load of things to put on the agenda. Let's see. Where did I have that agenda? I had a README file. Let's see. Sorry for the delay here. I just need to find out where I put that agenda. I don't think I saved it. All right. Well, I know what I'm going to do in the next stream. We're going to implement having the terrain become a crater when a bomb hits it. We're going to implement the pterodactyl spawner or enemy spawner that will spawn enemies. And we're going to try and implement having the buggy move forward and backward. Those controls are important. We're also going to want to add scoring. So when you kill hazards or kill pterodactyls, it should score points. And we're going to want to add milestones. So we're going to need a milestone spawner. I've actually got some pretty good assets I think I can use. So if we go back to Unity, and I just hit play and pause. So this is the number of milestones. These are the number of milestones I completed, and these are the best milestones. So it's like my high score milestones. Excuse me. I'm going to place these guys at milestone points on the terrain, like probably below where the crater would go. So let's look at the game. Yeah, so probably somewhere like here, and it'll have a number. So for milestone 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. And it's going to have a invisible collider. So whenever the buggy collides with it, I'll tell the level controller we passed a milestone. And I'll probably throw up the scrolling text, you know, milestone 1, milestone 2. And then whenever I write my next mini game, when you complete the minimum required milestones to unlock the next mini game, I'll throw up the thing saying you've unlocked Egg Invaders or whatever game we're going to do next. But yeah, so those are some things coming up in the future. And I do plan to do a refactoring video where I refactor and clean up my code. So please click the like and subscribe button if you haven't already, and click the notification bell so you can be notified the next time I go live and the next time I post a video. But in the meantime, I really appreciate anybody that tuned in and anybody that watches this up on YouTube. And I hope it helped you with your game development journey. And please tune in to the next stream and have a great day.